What you roll out of your garage is only as good as what you roll on. Introducing the new BF Goodrich Mud Terrain TAKM3 tire. Built through experience and earned on the trail. The ultimate off-road enabler. Coming this June. Visit bfgoodrichtires.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Cheapest Meal presented by Deep Fried Draft. My name is Brian Bosarge. We're going to talk a lot of fantasy football and Dynasty fantasy this week, and we're going to talk a little Pittsburgh Steelers with a good friend of mine, Andy Miley. Last couple of weeks we've talked to Pigskin Paul Gilmet. We've talked to Joe Everett. We've been mostly talking 2018 NFL Draft. We're going to continue that this week. We're going to continue that this week now with the owner of DynastyBlitz.com. He is a contributor of Steelers Depot and Dynasty Trade Calculator. He's a fantasy football guru and the greatest export from the state of Maine, my good friend Andy Miley. Andy, how you doing?
Good, Brian. Boy, an export from Maine. Because I'm originally from Ohio but live in Maine, that's nice to be wanted by that state, I guess. I'm excited to talk some fantasy football, Steelers football, whatever you'd like to do.
Andy, it's been a good minute since the last time we saw each other. How's everything been going for you?
Everything is fine. Unfortunately, now working for a school, I'm not able to get the time off to go to Mobile because that's when we first met, going to the Senior Bowl, hanging out, just talking football, and I miss it, but unlike Shane, I can't swing those days off, and unfortunately, living in Maine, we have to use a lot of our personal days for snow days, or we get sent home early just so we get paid, so I can't put all those at the same time and go down.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, especially with snow, it's not something we generally have to deal with down here, obviously. But you also don't have to deal with 100-degree weather in May, so here we are. But, Andy, we're going to start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know you contribute to SteelersDepot.com and a long-time Steelers fan. What was your overall assessment of the 2018 Steelers draft class?
Well, I wish we could have traded down to get one of the top four linebackers, but unfortunately when that happened, and it seemed like the GM and everybody basically said, hey, if we can't get the top four, we're just going to go elsewhere, and obviously Edmonds was a huge surprise in the first round, but I mean, it looks like they're probably going to have him on the field with Morgan Burnett, with Sean Davis, and then we're going to have our John Bostic, who we picked up pretty cheaply. Those are going to be our kind of linebacker/safeties on the field, which things are a little bit scary, but I didn't mind us getting James Washington to hopefully take the spot of Bryant. And then, who knows with the Mason Rudolph, if he'll be the heir apparent to Ben or they'll draft somebody else. But, I mean, at least they're thinking quarterback. Getting a swing tackle is always nice. Getting another backup safety with Marcus Allen, no relation to the Oakland, Kansas City great running back, but, played for Penn State, so they know what he can do. Jalen Samuels is a funny kind of guy that, is he a running back? Is he a tight end? Is he a fullback? What exactly is he? I mean, I'm not sure how fantasy relevant he'll be, but hopefully he'll be able to do something. And if Lev Bell goes, James Conner isn't very good at catching the ball so well. He can run well between the tackles, but Jalen Samuels can definitely catch almost as well as Lev Bell. So maybe there's something there. And then getting a big, beefy nose guard in the 7th round from Bama who can occupy space and moves around well. I was pretty happy, other than, not getting a replacement for Shazier, but, you can only do with what you have.
Right. Go back to that first-round pick, Terrell Edmonds. I had actually, before the draft, I'd kind of seen different people saying, well, maybe he gets in the first round, and I had him right around pick 140. I mean, that's where I had him ranked. Was you as shocked with that reach in the first round as I was?
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I think it was Lock and Four was saying that he was inching up, and, there's a lot of people that don't care for him. I happen to was lucky enough to be friends with him on Twitter. I've talked to him a couple times. So, I mean, I was surprised. I mean, there was a lot of people that said, they thought it was his brother was still available and made jokes with it. As shocked as I was happy that they didn't take Mason Rudolph in the first round. So funny thing, if Mason Rudolph would have gotten picked in the first round and Edmonds would have gotten picked in the 3rd round, people wouldn't really be talking. But there was a lot of people that thought that they should be flipped around.
I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, if it had gone either way, or if James Washington goes at pick 28, it wouldn't have been the hugest reach. And I know our good buddy Joe Everett, he's a big fan of Corafor there in round, I think it was round 4. Pittsburgh grabs him. So
round 3,
good selection.
At the end of the 3rd.
Round 3 in the 3rd. Yeah, sorry. There's an undrafted free agent that I'm a big fan of that Pittsburgh brought in, and that's tight end Pharaoh McKeever from Florida International. This was a guy I saw at NC State as a redshirt freshman, was a starter as an outside linebacker, then, as a defensive end, obviously got pushed out there because you saw what their defensive line was in this draft, moves to tight end, gets buried on the depth chart there, then transfers out, has a good season this year at FIU. Have you seen anything on Pharaoh McKeever to think that he maybe can make this roster as either on the 53-man or the practice squad?
He may be able to make the practice squad. Steelers seem to be pretty happy with Jesse James and Vance McDonald. They had Xavier Grimble got a little bit of playing time last year, and Jake McGee, I think he's from Florida. I mean, so I think it's a practice squad or nothing really but they'd like to try out a bunch of different people, and who knows, if they're going to keep Jalen Samuels where, they're just going to strictly have him, run with the running backs and the fullbacks. So, I mean, he could always, bounce off to tight end or at least in a slot or something. So I don't know how many tight ends they're going to keep, but I'm all for keeping athletic guys that can block and do it the Steeler way. So, I mean, if he can help, I would certainly love to have him.
Yeah, you got to believe Jalen Samuels is saving a roster spot for somewhere else with his versatility. Let's get off the subject of the Steelers now, and let's move on to something I really know nothing about, but I know you do. Just give my listeners here the Cliff Notes version of what Dynasty Fantasy is.
Dynasty Fantasy Football is basically you draft these people one time, and they stay on your roster unless you trade them away or you cut them. You do an initial draft. It depends how big your rosters are, and then the next year you draft rookies with however you placed the year before. So if you are in a 12-team league, the league champion would pick 12th. And it would mirror the NFL draft that, the worst team would get the first pick, and they would get the first pick in every round, however long your rookie drafts were. Most typically, I mean, most of my leagues are like 5 rounds. And I play in IDP leagues, which is the individual defensive players. So, you know, I'm interested in the linebackers and the, you know, strong safeties especially, and, you know, defensive ends that are making a lot of sacks. And that's just been my lifeblood. I've actually been playing fantasy football since 1993, where it wasn't really all that popular like it is now, that you can just pull up scores. I had to go to the local newsstands and, you know, grab local papers from around, you know, the area, or, you know, the New York Times for information on players. And so it's been pretty much, I guess, an obsession of mine since 1993, which is fun but also sad in a way.
All right, let's get on with the regular fantasy football that I think probably anybody that's listening to this right now or will listen to this probably plays fantasy football. I would imagine, at least in some Joe Schmo league at their work, or, you know, with some of their friends, or in the more serious leagues, you know, like you ringers do. But of the five quarterbacks picked in the first round this year, Andy, who has the most fantasy value for this upcoming season?
I would say Josh Rosen, just because I don't think Bradford is very long. I mean, I still can't have paid him $20 million. I mean, he's going to have a healthy David Johnson. He's going to have Larry Fitzgerald. He's going to have a new weapon with Christian Kirk. So, and I just think he is probably the most ready to play right now. If you're looking more future long-term, Lamar Jackson definitely is more of a running threat, and again, very active arm. He doesn't have the best weapons, but he's somebody to look in more of a dynasty eyes. But if you're looking at having to draft a quarterback to use this year, definitely it'd be Rosen.
Is Saquon Barkley going to be the most valuable rookie for fantasy this year?
Yes, he should be. I'm sure that they are going to not only run his legs off, but I'm sure he's going to be pretty active in the passing game. I wouldn't be surprised. I would think probably 800 yards rushing at least, and another 800 yards receiving, I think is very it could very much be in play. I mean, it could go either, could go up, but I think he's going to be used. I don't think he's going to leave the field very much.
So he could have like a David Johnson type impact as a rookie this year.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely could. I mean, obviously when you got OBJ, you know, taking up the defense, you got the second year tight end also making a difference. That, I mean, especially when they spread things out, he should be able to get open against most linebackers.
No, most definitely. The guy, I think, am I crazy to think that Rashad Penny has tremendous value for Seattle as a rookie in fantasy this year?
He does, but their offensive line is horrible. I mean, that's one problem with him. And I mean, he's gotten a lot of touches, you know, in the last 2 years. I mean, he obviously didn't come from a very strong program. I mean, for the level that he was playing, he just hasn't faced the level of competition. But from everything that we're hearing, is he's going to be the workhorse and probably getting anywhere from 20 to 30 touches a game. So he should be productive, and he would be more of a guy to target in a redraft or a yearly league, just because he might get used up pretty early. Kind of what the Steelers are going to plan on doing to Lev Bell, give him 300 to 370 touches, and to see if his legs come off or not.
Right. the rookie wide receiver that you're targeting in your fantasy draft this year?
I'm targeting Christian Kirk. I mean, I know he's had you hear about some off-field issues now that happened that the Cardinals knew about him, getting inebriated and doing something in a parking lot, throwing rocks or some kind of junk. I mean, that's not the most impressive. And also Gallup from Dallas is somebody that seems to be slipping, and who knows what that Dallas wide receiver core is going to look like. But I think he definitely has a chance to be successful this year.
Could Calvin Ridley have gone to a worse spot for fantasy value?
No, he couldn't have. With him also being a little bit older than most rookies, I ended up picking him in one, but at least, I mean, I think he could still end up with, 75 catches for 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, Julio, he'll have like a superstar game where he'll catch 16 passes and, almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, and then he'll be quiet for a good part of the time. I mean, at least Ridley's not going to see, the top-notch corners. He should get single coverage, and hopefully he can get free a couple times. But for a consistent, guy that you can count on every week, he probably won't be that.
Any of the tight ends more than backup value this year?
I would say Gesicki, just because, Miami does have, limited weapons, and he's not going to go into block. I mean, great job, Ravens, of picking, 2 tight ends, so we're not sure which one. I know one of the jokes on the internet right now is they got Hurst, and then they got Anderson to back him up. So when Hurst's legs fall off because he's an older rookie in the next year or two, that Anderson will be ready to replace him. Herndon is an interesting guy with the Jets because they really don't have that much there. I mean, Goddard, if he would have gone almost anywhere else, then he'd probably be my number one. But since he got drafted by Philly and is behind Ertz, he probably won't be used all that much until Ertz leaves. So it kind of dries up after that.
Yeah, the thing with the Ravens is, everybody knows I'm a South Carolina homer through and through, and even I had Hayden Hurst as tight end 4 in this draft. I had Mark Andrews rated above him as just because of what he can do with the football in his hands. I liked him more. So, I think as far as fantasy goes, I wouldn't be surprised if Andrews is more valuable in the next couple of seasons than Hayden Hurst. Let's talk about IDPs now, and there's probably at least three, maybe 4 in the first round this year that should get some run. Who's the better IDP pick out of Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, Leighton Vander Esch, and even Rashaan Evans?
I like Roquan the best. I mean, I think he's the most ready, and the whole Chicago. I mean, they really don't have anybody that can overshadow him. I actually have Evans as my second, just because I think he might not be the most athletic, but I believe that he will be the one that is going to be most protected and most. He doesn't have to fight a lot of people for his, tackle opportunities. Tremaine Edmonds, I have a really bad feeling that he is going to play more of a strong backer spot, which means he's going to be, covering the tight end. He is not going to be, basically in IDP, it's the weak side backer and the middle backers, the ones that have the most coverage from the defensive line, that get to flow to the ball quicker. And I just have a bad feeling that Edmonds is going to get tied up, dealing with backs coming out of the backfield and tight ends in coverage. Darius Leonard with the whole week Colts situation with their linebackers might be a surprise there. And Fred Warner in San Francisco, who knows if Malcolm Smith can stay healthy, and who knows what their second-year linebacker that's escaping me right now that's always in trouble. I know he got charges dismissed, but it looks like Fred.
Reuben Foster.
But, yeah, Foster, that he is, Fred's going to be, just waiting to jump in there. As far as defensive backs, James is far and, beyond the best, in the best situation. He's been lining up strong safety. Hopefully he stays there, just because strong safeties get more tackle opportunities than free safeties who are more busy covering. Fitzpatrick, that's just kind of a mess at safety. And I do like Edmonds from Pittsburgh. He might be able to, if he's used, if they run a dime more often, he might see the opportunity to be a little bit successful. Defensive line, oh my gosh. There really isn't anybody that is going to be impactful this year. Davenport, I actually just, I've done a couple scouting reports on him. I just turned one into the Dynasty trade calculator today. I just think he's too raw right now. He doesn't know anything but power. He does a good job of getting his hands up front, and he's got violent hands to keep people off of him. But I don't think he's going to know all that much to do. You saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was getting, his butt kicked the first couple days. I know he had the scoop and score, in the actual game, but I really don't see him making an impact this year.
Yeah, he was with Davenport. He was just, I don't want to say manhandled, but he did not win many one-on-one reps during the 3 practice days. But during the game itself, he dominated in almost every rep he had, including, like you said, the scoop and score. I did not. That's one of the worst moves, in my opinion, during the draft, was the Saints giving up next year's one to move up to draft Davenport.
No, and I agree, and a fifth this past year too.
Yeah.
And everybody was getting all excited because they were thinking, oh, they're going up for Lamar Jackson because now we have the backup for Breeze. That we can keep the Peyton train going. Nothing's going to stop it now. And then when that happened, I know my mouth was open. I was like, are you kidding me? But
Yeah.
Obviously, if you got Cam Jordan on the other side of you, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. I don't know that the Saints had a draft pick this year that helps the Saints in 2018.
Yeah, well, what? Byron Scott from I forget where he's from, the 5'6" running back. Yeah. Obviously, who's with Kenneth Dixon didn't exactly take the league by storm. Obviously same program, everything, but with and this is where my 15 concussions are always in play when I'm doing live radio. I know what I'm talking about. Like, I can see the wonderful the jerseys, but the actual names always escape me. So with old Bama guy, their running back, that's suspended for the first 4 games. Byron Scott may have an opportunity. Yeah. That with Ingram, he may have an opportunity, but the rest of the Saints draft, what do you think of the here we go again. The guy from Orlando, the
UCF, Traquan Smith.
Right. Well, but it's in Orlando, so that's why. Yeah. Maybe in a year or two, he can do something.
Right, but I mean, and this season though, I mean, what he's 5th or 6th on your on their target list there if you're Drew Brees. And then Rick Leonard in the 4th round, the offensive tackle from Florida State. I had him rated as the 36th ranked offensive tackle, goes in the 4th round. I just don't know how anybody watched Florida State football this past year and saw anybody on their offensive line and say, I got to get some of that. I don't know. didn't quite see that.
No, I agree. And unfortunately, being a former offensive guard and center, and I actually coached high school football for 2 years, I leave that to people to have more patience. I got my fantasy things going on, so I'm always watching the defense, everybody there, and all the skill players, but I'm still, even though I'm biased against myself, I don't pay as enough attention to the line as I should.
Yeah, I mean, it was a horror show there for their quarterbacks at Florida State this year. But Andy, I appreciate you taking the time out today to call in, talk a little fantasy, talk Steelers with me. It's always good talking to you, my friend.
Well, it's great talking to you, and good luck with this. And I look forward to hearing some more. And if you ever need me, just let me know. Be happy to talk again.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again soon. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, Brock.
That was Andy Miley of DynastyBlitz.com, Steelers Depot, and Dynasty Trade Calculator joining us today, talking fantasy football, talking Dynasty football, and talking the Pittsburgh Steelers 2018 draft class. We talked a little bit about the New Orleans Saints there as well, and, various other topics. Always good to catch up with an old friend and talk football. But that's going to do it for today's episode of The Cheapest Meal, presented by Deep Fried Draft. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks for listening, everybody.
I've had a Storm playing, and USA was awesome with that. I mean, it was flawless from the moment I called them to getting the adjust out there to getting it approved.
See how much you could save with USAA.
Member paid for their participation.
Mike and I are both veterans, both served in the Navy.
We bought our first home together.
His family had used another insurance product, but I was like, well, I've had USAA for a while. Why don't we call and check the rates?
It was instant savings, and I should have changed a long time ago.
Member paid for their participation.